welcome to Good
Hello.
Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Barjo, and this week we euthanate objects.
What?
We make things younger with Singularity, the FPS, we have a time manipulation device.
Right.
And we plough through some zombies.
Oh, technically they're freaks, Barjo.
Technically they're freaks, Barjo. Yes, but they've invaded Pacific City in the latest open-world sandbox game, Crackdown 2.
And the latest from Aussie developer Infinite Interactive with gem-matching RPG mashup, Puzzle Quest 2.
Plus, while we were in the States last month, we took the opportunity to visit Treyarch, who are making the latest Call of Duty game, Black Ops.
But first, it's time to be guessing the game for this week.
Right, well, I'm off to read the news. I heard everything you said.
You're a ninja. You gotta read it. You can't sit back down. The news is over there.
Good game.
Google is looking to get into the games business. The search engine company recently made an investment of more than $100 million in Zynga, the company that gave the world the hit Facebook game Farmville. Google is hiring staff for a new gaming division and has reportedly squirreled away up to $500 million to fund the venture. Blizzard has reversed a controversial decision to force gamers to use their real names on the official Blizzard forums in something they had tagged Real ID. The hope was to eliminate online mischief-making or trolling by forcing gamers to use their real names instead of pseudonyms. Yet it soon became apparent that the compulsory use of real names would lead to an explosion in stalking and other forms of online harassment. In response to these legitimate concerns, Blizzard has now promised that the Real ID system will remain an optional extra. Bad news at Firaxis this week. In the lead up to the release of Sid Meier's Civilization V, the prominent developer shed upwards of 20 staff. While it's common for developers to make quality assurance and game testing staff redundant when their services are no longer needed, the recent cuts at Firaxis were across the board. Artists, animators, programmers, and designers were also let go. To justify the job cuts, a 2K Games representative issued a statement claiming that the studio was realigning its development resources. Games publisher Ubisoft is predicting that a 3D revolution is on the way, and that by the end of 2013, 3D television will be in everyone's living rooms. Considering that Sony is already heavily promoting 3D game support on the PS3, and that a new console generation is also widely pegged to arrive around 2013, these claims might not be so far-fetched. However, new research by UK charity the Eye Care Trust has found that 1 in 10 people can't even perceive stereoscopic 3D due to poor binocular vision. Symptoms of this impairment include headaches and visual discomfort when viewing 3D.
Now it's so tense. Ricky looking for his opportunity.
Daigo Yumihara, better known as The Beast, has won the Street Fighter World Championship at the EVO 2010 tournament in Las Vegas. Street Fighter 4 was used to settle the final, with The Beast victorious using Ryu, taking a 3-1 win over rival Ricky Ortiz, who had opted for Rufus.
So tense. No!
Good game.
From the safety of this rooftop, you get a sense of just how badly things have deteriorated. By day, the agency struggles with Cell. At night, the streets are overrun.
Crackdown was one of the first big open-world games on the 360, and it wasn't half bad. It delivered some really fun, memorable sandbox action. Crackdown 2 is here, and once again, you are a member of the super elite police agency called The Agency, and your job is to enforce the law, make the law, and you are above the law.
Extra crispy.
You're fighting for control of Pacific City, the same city from the first game, battling against the civilian group known as Cell, as well as a stream of mindless mutants called Freaks who only come out at night.
I like it when the freaks come out at night, Hex.
Yeah, me too.
Crackdown Crackdown 2 is a true, pure sandbox game, and that's really all it is. You won't find an in-depth storyline here in the campaign, and basically, don't kid yourself, this is a game which gets you addicted to finding orbs to increase your abilities and hopes that's enough to keep you happy.
Well, that's a bit harsh, Barjo. I mean, there are also various side missions, such as closing out freak breaches, wiping out cell strongholds, and a few checkpoint street races too.
But the campaign missions, Hex, they're so repetitive. Basically, you just activate a bunch of satellites.
This unit's operational now.
Then when you've got enough, you can drop a beacon into a freak area, find a few waves of freaks, and then it's all over. And it's just that again and again, right to the end. Only the last 2 missions are different, and not by much.
Come on, Barjo, didn't you enjoy finding all those orbs? I was addicted to searching them out, and it's so satisfying when you absorb them, you know, especially when you level up.
There is a warm feeling when you finally get one of those, but I just found I spent all my time doing this. And this.
Okay, I hope that's a lesson learned. Now, can we please get back to the mission at hand without the senseless killing of innocent citizens?
And then this. And the climbing system is still fiddly. You'd think they would have fixed that from the first game.
When you first start out in Crackdown 2, it can be hard going. But once you hit level 4 agility, you'll start to enjoy leaping buildings in a single bound, which is even more fun when you get your friends to join you in co-op. And it's clear that Crackdown 2 is meant to be enjoyed with multiple buddies, because those beacon fights can really get tough when you're solo.
This just doesn't feel like a full game to me, and I guess that's a symptom of the short development time. The team made this in 8 months, which is quite an achievement, but unfortunately it does show with a lack of content, and there's just not enough game here. I admit it is fun smashing about in multiplayer, and Rocket Tag will definitely keep you on your toes. It's quite spectacular at times too, but given the choice to play this one or the first Crackdown was just much better. I'm giving it 5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Look, I think your criticisms are justified, but I think a completist gamer will get a lot out of it. I really struggled to score this one because a lot of the GG team actually really enjoyed it, including me. But at the end of the day, this is pitched and priced as a full AAA title, and when placed alongside other open world games of that level, it just doesn't stack up. So I'm giving it 6.5.
I hated that voiceover guy too.
This unit is dead, Agent, but it's nothing a little activation won't fix.
Couldn't turn him off.
So annoying.
Don't let it get away!
Well, I really like Super Mario Galaxy 2. I got about like 80 stars right now, and I was like, oh, there's 120 stars in the game, right? And I was like, okay, I can work towards that. But then I found out there's actually 242 stars, and I was like, yeah, I'm kind of done with this. Yeah.
Good game.
Barjo, I keep waiting for the day that I'll get sick of fighting post-apocalyptic radiation-afflicted mutants, but it just hasn't happened yet.
Couldn't agree more, Hex. And I think as long as games keep giving me interesting ways to lay waste to these creatures, I'm going to be perfectly contented just laying waste to them.
Our latest foray into monster mashing comes to us in the form of Singularity, a first-person shooter that puts us in the shoes of Captain Nathaniel Renko, a US military operative sent by the government to investigate an abandoned Cold War-era research island of Katorga 12. A substance known as E99 has been developed upon in an attempt to create a new energy source, and much more. Here, your typical thriller elements begin to take over your screen. Inexplicable flashes of the past, a host of mangled bodies, the token creepy child's playground, and some rather hideous meaty mutant things that try to kill you.
You then find yourself time warped to a 1950s version of the Soviet base, and from then on, time travel becomes a major theme of the game.
We can correct the timeline.
Actions you perform in the past will often have various effects in the present. It's a linear game though, so it's all predetermined, but it's fun bouncing backwards and forwards in time and seeing how all this plays out.
Time manipulation isn't restricted to the story though. I mean, it starts out as a pretty standard FPS, but later on you pick up a kind of power glove thing called TMD, which stands for Time Manipulation Device. Its primary function is to manipulate objects in the world by either aging them or using the power of time manipulation to restore them to their original state. And this includes enemies, which I have to say is pretty awesome. You know, the first time you use the power glove to age an enemy soldier to dust or revert him to a mutant state for an easier kill, it's really cool. I gotta love that power glove.
I think you'll find it's called a TMD, Hex.
Yeah, whatever.
If at this point you're starting to feel like everything's a bit reminiscent of Bioshock, then it's going to feel even more like that once you start upgrading your gear. The TMD also uses blast charges to send enemies flying backwards, or you can levitate items and send them hurling into baddies, useful as always on those red barrels. And later on you can also create little bubbles of frozen time, which help get through tricky areas, but also good for taking down those nasties that just don't want to die.
Yeah, I love getting into the swing of combining something like the TMD with regular gunplay. You know, coordinating those two elements is just so much fun.
One thing I am getting a little tired of though, Hex, is those random audio logs. They were everywhere.
What's wrong with audio logs?
I like audio logs as much as the next guy, but here it's kind of like every staff member was given a giant tape deck and told to record something and leave it somewhere in the building as some sort of random Easter egg hunt.
Oh, no, I love them for the story. Although I wish they were portable, because here I just kind of had to hang out in the one room and wait till it had finished playing out before I could move on.
Yeah, I was like, what was that? You get, never mind. I just took off.
The game offers a few puzzle elements as you go on, but not nearly enough. You know, I get so excited when it offers you a problem like, how do I fit through this door? I can take this crumpled crate and use time manipulation to age it back into its original form, thus opening the door in the process. It's brilliant.
Yeah, that was a good one, and that took me ages and I felt like a giant noob. But, you know, that was where the complication ended, and everything else then was kind of simple. I wish they'd taken it further, Hex. You do spend a lot of your time restoring ammo crates and staircases, don't you, Hex? They're just everywhere.
Yeah, it's a bit gimmicky just using it to restore stairs so that you can walk on them. I really like the time rifts though. Using the TMD to stretch the portal so that you could travel between time periods, that was cool. I think my favourite part of the game was when I got to use the E99 Seeker gun. It allows you to slow time down and then remotely control the bullet and steer and bend it through a room and into enemies. And they're obliterated in spectacular fashion with limbs exploding and body parts flying off. It was great.
Yes, it's gore-tastic. They're quite the fan of the neck fountain in this game.
Quite the fan. There were some really unexpected parts too, like the E99 affected areas that caused mutations in the form of suicidal exploding spiders. Or some seriously harrowing boss fights that made for a nice break from the dilapidated ruins and shooting in dark corridors.
The game offers two multiplayer modes, a base defending and a team deathmatch with humans versus monsters. It's all a bit hectic and stressful and kind of confusing.
Yeah, it was the kind of thing where I found a game and then I was running around like a madwoman going, where am I? What am I doing? While things vomited on me. It was nuts. I mean, I didn't hate it, I just wouldn't go back. Final thoughts?
One thing I thought the game did really well were those horror moments early on. There was one level in particular where you're walking along and all the enemies are blind and you haven't got any ammo, and that's super stressful. But they really should have taken all that time manipulation stuff much further, so I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
There were some elements that were certainly familiar, sure, but I mean, I still had a great time with this. I think they did a great job with the storytelling and I was never bored, and while they could have pushed the time elements a little bit more, I still loved what was there. And I think if you're System Shock or Bioshock fans, you'll love this one as well, so I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game.
Game development studio Treyarch has been around for over a decade and are best known for their work on the Spider-Man games and Call of Duty World at War.
A few years ago, they turned all their attention towards developing the next Call of Duty game, Black Ops. We recently took a tour of their studios to see how they do things and how the game is progressing. So this is Treyarch.
This I have to see. This is top secret here.
Okay, blacked out.
Dan here is working on a top secret situation, so we're not gonna we're not gonna tell you exactly what he's working on. When we're in pre-production, we really immersed ourselves into the whole era, and we have plenty of propaganda from both sides littered all over the place to really just immerse ourselves into the subject matter. This is our 6th game of this generation of hardware, and it's our 3rd Call of Duty game in this generation of hardware. We made the decision after World at War to just consolidate our focus on creating Call of Duty games and focusing all of our expertise and all of our developers on this game. We have all that going into it, and so frankly at this point what we worry about is creating compelling game designs. We don't concern ourselves too much with the technicals.
Call of Duty is a long franchise. It's got a lot of entries and a lot of great games, and we wanted to provide the players something fresh and new that they haven't seen before. So we wanted to tackle an era, you know, not World War II, not modern. It's something that hasn't been seen, which was the Cold War era.
Ready when you are.
Nice to meet you.
This is Adam.
Adam.
Very good, you know?
Adam is our cinematics lead, and as I was telling you about doing the performance capture and the level of realism that we can get.
Look like shit, Woods.
There's some kind for shit in the jungle. It's not, baby.
So one thing that we're trying to do differently on this title is we're trying to bring more realism and more character to our characters. We want them to emote their emotion better. We want you to connect with them better. We want you to kind of feel what they're experiencing on a more personal level. We want you to connect with their eyes, if you will. So what we've done now is we've taken up a process or a technique called full performance capture. So that means we capture your face, your body, and your audio, like your voice speaking at the same time. So what that does is it helps us have a more natural conversation. Even me talking around with my body language, it comes through very naturally. My breaths, my pauses, all that.
Back in '64, the CIA gave up control of covert operations in Southeast Asia, handed it over to the U.S. military. From that, McAfee SOG was born.
We have a story. In pre-production, we start by making our story, and then we need to create gameplay that supports our story.
Anybody in the studio could write an idea down on a card. Anybody. It didn't matter whether you were day one hire or you've been here for, you know, the last 10 years. And these cards were, and you had to put it up in a public place.
We're in full power. You ready?
Then they were collected by the leads and they were reviewed. And the ones that we felt like, hey, this is something that is actionable and we feel like we could execute on and that we'd like to execute on, release the resources to be able to put together a small sort of strike team, if you will. And we would work on creating whatever it was, you know, whether it was, hey, I want to be able to do a you know, high altitude diving mechanic, or I want to do a controllable helicopter.
Take that bridge out. Nice work.
The first time where we've had a dedicated multiplayer team working on a project since day one. You know, previously we've had to sort of do multiplayer second to single player, so now they've been developed in parallel since the start.
No one fights alone, Mason.
And that's allowed us, and that's afforded us the opportunity to do some really great things. We're not ready to do a full reveal of our MP just yet. There's just so much that I want to tell you about, but we just can't. But I can tease you with, we're putting a strong focus this year on player customization and personalization, as well as player socialization. If you think about Create a Class as one example, that's something that's been in Call of Duty for a while now, and it's been completely overhauled for Black Ops. And that played really well into the Black Ops theme, because before any mission they would oftentimes modify their weapons and saw off a shotgun or any sort of modification the weapon needed. They could even pack their own ammo and have custom ammo types and stuff. So, you know, this is the kind of stuff that we look at and think about incorporating into a game.
Bam! Kicked as hard as you can, right down across the shin, into the eyes, onto the neck, into the groin.
My name is Hank Kersey. I'm the military advisor for Call of Duty.
Don't try this at home. Do not try this at home. Do not try that at home.
I'm able to come in at various stages of production and look at what they're doing through the eyes of a soldier. They've done the research, they've watched all the movies, they've read the books, and so they're ready in that respect, but they haven't served 24 years in the military. And so I'm able to talk to them a little bit about how a weapon should be held, how you might go around a corner, how you would operate with tanks in the street, how you would call for indirect fire, where and what situation you'd use a machine gun or a support by fire position or a maneuver position, and give them the last little, you know, polish to the great machine before it rolls off the assembly line.
One of the things we did learn from them was that they train a lot of things like to potentially be one-handed if they got a hand removed in battle. So, you know, stick it in their belt, putting a clip in, they would still be able to rechamber the weapon.
Show me that again. Okay.
There you go.
That's a lot harder than it looks. I've got to stop embarrassing myself and give it back to you.
One of the things that always disturbed me, you'd go through in the early games as the muzzle control of guys. So you're sitting there and you're talking to a guy and you walk to talk to him, and as you talk to him, your Thompson submachine gun is pointed dead at his chest. That always bothered me. Nobody's ever quite got that muzzle control. Your muzzle should go down or up as you pass the plane of another human. I just think we still fix that. But that's something that always gave me the willies in the first game, like, God, this guy's pointing his weapon right at me. I feel like going over and slapping him.
So, this is our characters team here, and this is On, and this is Ludwig, and this is where we create some of the richly detailed characters that you see in Call of Duty. So this is a real person. This is our Soviet Spetsnaz advisor who came to visit us, Sonny Kusikas, and that is him. He makes an appearance in the game, and actually we have an AI modeled after some techniques that he showed.
He taught us this tactic called getting off the X in particular. And getting off the X basically said, as soon as a Soviet Spetsnaz saw a muzzle pointed at them, they would weave, they would dodge, and they would immediately get out of the line of that barrel. So if the enemy pulled the trigger, the bullet would miss them.
So this one here is Sonny, and he's our Soviet Spetsnaz, and he's showing us how he'll train and do movement. This here is a Hollywood stuntman trying to do the same movement. Oops. Oh.
This is our Spetsnaz that you can actually fight against. Right. So you can see right away.
Wow. It must be fun creating like just working with the different AI in this, a whole different way of fighting, right?
Our AI is going to do a lot of thinking and actually decide whether or not to get off the X and move out of the way and not be killed.
You want to try?
Making them more
effective.
Can I? Do you mind?
Sure, go for
it.
Let
me
do my ducking roll.
That level of movement, that those acrobatics, that's completely inspired by talking with a black operations soldier of that era.
When you are going to and expected to perform at the level that you have to perform to create these games, you just, sky is the limit. And so when we're done with this, Activision's gonna have to rip this out of our hands. We're not gonna be done, if you know what I mean. And so that's okay, because we're just gonna keep making, aggressively supporting it post-launch. But that's just kind of our mindset. So yeah, no, we haven't creatively reached our peak, no way.
The notion of the cash-core game, the blend of casual and hardcore game mechanics, was brilliantly demonstrated in the Aussie-produced Puzzle Quest.
Yes, that mix of bejeweled-like gem matching and role-playing made it a massive hit back in 2007, ensuring a release across every platform. And now we have the sequel, Puzzle Quest 2. I was a bit worried that after the success of the first one, Hex, they try and cram too much into this one and blow it.
Like Electrics.
Yeah, like Electrics. But, I love it. I'm happy to say this is a great game. It's more balanced, it's more strategic, and there's more variety. There's just more to do. Oh, Cascade! So good.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're excited, but I love role-playing games. But you have to admit that the role-playing elements here, even with the new dungeon crawler look, they're a bit on the lame side.
Hex, are you saying that sliding frames and static text are not to your liking?
I'm just saying that us RPGs have moved on just a little bit from that. I mean, it's not the most exciting roleplay experience.
But that's a blasphemy! Look, I'll agree that the RPG stuff isn't flashy, but Puzzle Quest is all about gameplay. It's pure gameplay. The depth here is in the combination of how you set up your abilities and how you complement that with gear, and how you execute and plan out your attack. It's completely unapologetic to newcomers, and once you start understanding how the skull multipliers work and how defense works, it just gets incredibly addictive.
The mini-games are back, there's more of them, and they're more interesting. Some of the boards have breakable bricks or different gem quantities, and the big difference is the new gem on the board, Fist.
Yes, the Fist weapon. The Fist is a weapon gem, so now you can slot weapons, shields, or mana potions in one of two slots. And as you play, you can build this up to unleash a powerful attack. It opens up new strategies and also some pretty cool versus screens.
If you've played lots of the first game, you'll want to play this on hard and definitely turn off the help tips. It's just no fun when you're being told what to match.
No. Puzzle Quest 2 gives some of the most intense multiplayer action in all gaming, and it's one of those things where just looking at this, you can't really get the feeling of how intense it is, but trust us, you'll be pulling your face off. Do you go for a mana rush or try to get a cheap cascade by spanning the board with colour abilities? Do you deny your opponent gems or build up your own reserves? It's just wonderful to have a game where I get to think about how to beat my opponent, where I can work out a whole battle plan and then see that play out.
Yeah, classes play like they should. We couldn't find a match online, but it's probably because this isn't a short game and everyone was busy leveling up their characters.
Yeah, I think the online lobby system could have been a little bit more elegant. It would have been nice to see the game expand more in that space. You know, Hex, there's only a few games each year that really occupy my headspace, and this is one of them. All week, people have been talking to me, but all I see in their face are gems that I need to move around.
You know, after the second, I think it's the second or third sniper level, there's that massive thing on the train, where it's kind of, it's kind of a giant kind of praying mantis thing. It's really hectic when you go...
Mana drain, new face. I'm giving it 9 out of 10 rubber chickens. I'm obsessed.
Well, whatever it is in the human brain that gets satisfaction from doing the same task over and over again, it's certainly satisfied in this game. I do get the appeal, I just don't think it appeals to me in quite the same way as you. It's 7.5 from me.
Hex totally rage quit online.
I didn't rage quit.
Yeah, you did.
That's... my connection went down.
No, it didn't. The internets were fine.
Shut up. Good game. So, did you guess the game for this week?
Hello.
Say hello. It was, of course, Die by the Sword by Treyarch, which you might also have glimpsed in the intro to our feature story. The hack and slasher was released for the PC in 1998 and was, in fact, Treyarch's first game. And with that, we reach the end of another episode of Good Game, but we will be back next week with more gaming goodness.
Yes, including a roundup of the latest downloadable games for the DS. And we've had stacks of requests to review Demon's Souls. It's been out for ages overseas, but it's just arrived in our hands, so we take the torturous plunge.
Plus the latest game from Ron Gilbert, the man behind Maniac Mansion and Monkey Island, and it's called Death Spank. Till then, may all your games be good ones. Hex out.
Barjo out. Hello.